One of the most irritating chess openings you may encounter is the early queen attack, also known as the scholar's mate, and today I'd like to share a strategy to counter it effectively with just 2 moves, putting you in a winning position against most of your opponent's likely responses. And that's not all. I have an intriguing chess puzzle in store for all of you. So make sure you stay tuned until the end for the full experience. This aggressive queen attack typically arises when white starts with the move pawn to e4, and you respond with pawn to e5. When faced with this situation, white often develops their light square bishop first. After a few moves, like knight to c6, they try to execute their queen attack. There are 2 main ideas white has in mind. They aim to checkmate you with the queen on h5. Another trendy approach is to place the queen on f3, with the same checkmate idea. White's hope is that you might play standard moves like bishop to c5, in the Italian game, or knight to d4, chasing the queen, allowing them to quickly checkmate with queen takes pawn on f7. Alternatively, if you play moves like knight to f6, they still intend to maintain the initiative and continue their attack by developing pieces like knight to e2, pawn to d3, and potentially bishop to g5 to pin your knight. This allows them to persist with their aggressive strategy and potentially win the game later. Our goal is to deter opponents from playing this unorthodox opening and force them into more traditional lines. Here's the correct response when white plays queen to f3, creating a looming checkmate threat on f7. You should make the paradoxical move pawn to f5. This move might initially appear questionable because you seemingly give up a pawn willingly, and it might look like a hasty response to prevent the checkmate. However, what makes this move intriguing is that it resembles a tactic used in the Rousseau Gambit, which is a powerful gambit for black in chess. When you play pawn to f5, most opponents will be tempted to capture the pawn with their queen, happily gaining material advantage by taking the pawn and still maintaining the threat of queen to f7 checkmate. They might feel content with their position, having secured an extra pawn. This is where the game takes a surprising and satisfying turn. It's time to unleash your trap with pawn to d5. This move has several tactical implications. It opens up your bishop to attack white's queen. Simultaneously, it puts pressure on white's bishop on c4. It creates a situation where white can't protect both the queen and the bishop effectively. Most opponents who are fixated on executing the scholar's mate will often fall into the trap by capturing the pawn on d5 with their bishop. This move, bishop takes d5, is a critical mistake because you can now win white's queen in one move, essentially ending the game. The satisfaction of turning the tables on an opponent who attempted this aggressive opening is undeniable. Even if white were to recognize the threat to their queen and play queen to h5 check, you can calmly respond with pawn to g6, forcing the queen to move once more. As they reposition their queen, you can capture the bishop on d5, leaving you a piece up. The game becomes highly favorable for you, with moves like knight to d4 coming into play, and you find yourself in a winning position. This sequence effectively shuts down white's aggressive attempt and puts you in a dominant position. In some cases, when facing a more skilled opponent who doesn't fall for the queen takes f5 trap, there's a straightforward strategy to gain an advantage. You play knight to f6, which not only safeguards against potential queen checks on h5, but also sets the stage for advancing your pawn to d5, with support from the knight. This move allows you to challenge white's central pawn on e4 and opens up various attacking possibilities. You can follow up with knight to d4 to pressure white's queen and the pawn on c2, and you might also consider pushing your pawn to e4 to assert dominance in the center. If your opponent responds with pawn to d3 to deter your pawn to e4, you can further strengthen your position with knight to d4, attacking both the queen and the pawn on c2. This maneuver often forces white's queen to retreat all the way to d1, signaling the acknowledgement of their early mistake of bringing the queen out too soon in the game. This sequence grants you an advantageous position with initiative and central control. you continue your strong response by playing pawn to d5. This move gains another tempo by pushing white's bishop back to b3, effectively disrupting white's intended scholar's mate. With the bishop retreating, you recapture the pawn on f5, effectively countering white's ideas. The queen's constant back and forth movement is now back to its original square, and white's bishop has been pushed back. You now enjoy a commanding position in the center of the board, boasting better development prospects. Your next moves could include bishop to c5, castling, and launching a middle game attack. Meanwhile, white will likely need more time to complete their development. In cases where white chooses to play knight to f3, which is a common move, you can exploit this by playing bishop to g4. This move takes advantage of the pin on the knight, setting the stage for a swift attack. White won't have an easy way to defend the knight, and capturing it will disrupt white's pawn structure. If white tries to defend the knight with knight to d2, they overlook the pin, allowing you to play pawn to e4, winning the knight due to the pinned bishop. This sequence of moves further solidifies your advantageous position, as white will struggle to maintain their pawn structure and avoid losing material, potentially including their queen. After the exchange that leaves white's knight pinned and unable to move without getting captured, your position becomes highly advantageous. The pawn on e4 is well defended, preventing white from capturing it without losing the knight. If white attempts a countermove with pawn to h3, a popular choice, it leads to a rather amusing checkmate sequence. You capture the knight on f3 anyway, and after white recaptures the bishop, you proceed to take the pawn on g2, also attacking the rook. The rook must move to g1 to block your pawn's advance, and then you play queen to e7. This move sets up a nearly inescapable checkmate threat, because white's king has no legal moves, with your knight controlling the e2 square, preventing any escape to f1. White can't move their queen to e2 due to the pin. White might try knight to e4 to give up material to prevent immediate checkmate. After capturing the knight, there's still no straightforward way for white to escape. Even if white tries bishop to e3 or other moves, there are multiple winning paths for black, such as playing knight to f3 with a fork targeting the king and rook or castle queenside, or use your bishop for a fork with knight to f3, securing a decisive advantage. You might be wondering about white's move queen to h5, which also targets your pawn on f7 and hints at the scholar's mate with bishop to c4. To address this common tactic, I've recently recorded a video demonstrating not only how to defend against it, but also how to counter it effectively. You can check out the video for more insights and strategies on handling this situation. Now, it's time for a puzzle. In the given position, it's white's turn, and you need to find the best move for white. Share your answers in the comments, and let's see how many of you can solve it correctly. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with future videos. Take a moment to check out the other videos appearing on your screen right now. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care and peace.